UFC 300 has just taken place, and I'll be giving a recap of the entire card and ranking the card's best moments. I hope you enjoy. Alright, let's kick it off with the first fight of the night. We've got Cody Garbrandt versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I think that Deiveson, I was thinking that he would be dominant in the fight. I mean, he utilized great ground transitions, control. I mean, he really just showed that he could roll with Cody's transitions on the ground, especially when Cody was trying to explode out of the mount position. I mean, he just went straight. He went straight across the back control right as Cody exploded. I mean, it was pretty straightforward in terms of what the win was going to be. I didn't really feel like there was much confidence lacking in that decision, in that prediction. Cody did have moments though. I mean, he started off the first round better than Deiveson did. He had the leg kicks early. He was putting out a bit more volume. Deiveson did start a little bit slow. And even when Deiveson did get him to the ground, got him in that first submission attempt in that arm triangle, honestly, I thought it was done. But I mean, Cody did show some good defense. He managed to get out of it. But I think as the fight went on, especially to around like the later half of the second round, I think going back to that point of where Cody was trying to explode out of the controlling positions that Figueiredo had. By about the second half of the second round, you could see that Cody was he was breathing very heavily. And at the point when Figueiredo sunk in the rear naked choke, Cody tapped pretty much instantly. When you look at that finishing sequence, Cody is breathing so heavily, and I mean, he taps within about 5 seconds. It was pretty much done there. But I think, to be honest, knowing with my prediction, thinking that this fight would be dominated by Figueiredo, I will honestly say that I am pretty surprised at how dominant Figueiredo actually was in the wrestling game over Garbrandt. Garbrandt isn't that bad a wrestler at all, and I honestly thought that there wouldn't be that much difference there in terms of it. I think it just came down to, honestly, Figueiredo's ability to control and move his transitions as Cody was exploding. I think he just drew out Cody's stamina and he was just able to secure that finish. I think Deiveson stayed composed the whole time, and I just really think it's going to be interesting to see what is going to come next for him in the bantamweight division. Alright, next up the card, we have Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. Look, this card was filled with a lot of good moments, but I mean, no Jim fucking Miller. I was so annoyed at that. I mean, they're not gonna fire Bruce Buffer. Like, why can't he just do it? Like, I mean, if Bruce Buffer was naked in the octagon, that wouldn't matter. He still wouldn't get fired. I mean, that's why I was just really frustrated. I wish he said it, and it would have been a good send off for Jim Miller. Like, even knowing he lost, I mean, at least he gets that little bit to hold on to. I mean, aside from that, when we look at the fight itself, I mean, Bobby Green was straight out with the trash talk. The trash talk was backed up though. I mean, he's showing the hand speed difference, good front kicks to the body. I think in that first round though, Miller just showed that he had the more powerful shots. I mean, he wobbled him in the first round. There was a 13 strike differential to Bobby, but I think just the overall damage within that first round, I would probably have to give it to Jim Miller. When you move on to the second round though, I mean, Bobby's just finding his rhythm. His 1-2s were extremely effective. I mean, he was slipping out and then counter striking straight away as Jim Miller was just throwing some pot shots. I mean, Bobby was just, honestly, through rounds 2 to round 3, he was just running away with it, especially with his speed. He was just slipping, avoiding all the shots, and to the point where, I mean, Jim Miller was so damaged, he was just whiffing his shots. And Bobby, honestly, impressively, his pace didn't slow down at all. I think he did extremely well. And then in the last minute of the fight, he dropped him with a 1-2. I mean, Bobby had a really good showing. I think that for the early prelims, I think he did an amazing job, and especially coming back off that KO loss from Jalen Turner as well. We'll obviously get into Jalen Turner soon. But I mean, yeah, from the start of the fight, I mean, kind of being behind from getting wobbled from Jim Miller, you know, he showed his composure, he showed what he does best. I mean, he's got his 1-2s going, he's got his striking accuracy, I mean, his versatile volume, and I mean, all the way from going through the fight all the way to the end, I mean, of the call out, I mean, we've got Bobby calling out Paddy Pimblett in Manchester in July. I think that's a good fight to make. I mean, Bobby's older. Paddy has stock in the UFC, so I mean, it's going to be a big fight. It can be a decent payday for Bobby, but then also, I mean, we're due time for Paddy Pimblett to try and break into the top 15 there. If you're beating Tony Ferguson, you should be trying to break into the top 15. Yeah, so I think overall, I mean, the key to the fight, without a doubt, is Bobby's volume and his fluidity within the striking. I think that when it comes to Jim Miller, I think that, as I said in the predictions, I think a younger Jim Miller, Jim Miller that's a bit faster, quicker, swifter, would have been able to change that narrative a little bit. I'm not saying he would have won, but I think he would have been able to do a lot better, of course. But I think that Jim Miller, something that he did miss out on, I'm not sure if it's just the moment of UFC 300 and he's kind of wanting the fight to just be a banger. He didn't initiate the takedowns. He really needed to get Bobby to the ground, especially when it started picking up about halfway through round 2. He really needed to get that going. But otherwise, I mean, a good fight from two veterans. All right, and moving up the card, we have Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. I think throughout round 1, you just got to give it to Andrade for that ground control. I mean, she was able to get Marina down and she was able to control her without much response. I think that was mainly due to Marina not being able to have the cage to back her up and actually be able to get up off it. I think that throughout the second round, though, Marina was setting up her right hand a little bit better. She was getting in that boxing range and she was making Andrade struggle a little bit until the end of the second round, where Andrade did catch her. I mean, she was popping off on her. I thought Marina was actually going to be out of there towards the end of that round. Marina was just struggling to circle off properly. She was struggling to circle out of the way of Andrade's flurries, and that was getting more and more evident throughout the second round. And you could tell that from that round, going into her corner up until the third round, you could kind of get that form of desperation from herself and from the corner. So I mean, in round 3, Marina was pushing the pace very well, and I mean, she pretty much just outboxed Jessica Andrade throughout the third round. It was very close, but I mean, Andrade just utilized her opportunities very well when it came to pressuring Marina against the cage. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, I mean, the fact that Andrade was able to secure those takedowns and get that control time, I mean, there wasn't, like, the only damage that came in that fight wasn't from Marina, it was from Andrade. And I mean, along with that damage that she was able to put on, as well as the takedowns and the control time, I mean, it was pretty clear 29-28 for Jessica Andrade for me. I was kind of surprised that it was even a split decision. I think that, yeah, when it comes to any form of improvements, I think Marina really needs to keeping that outside movement a lot more consistent in her fights. All right, moving up the card, we have Jalen Turner versus Renato Moicano. Money Moicano, great job of driving through with his takedowns. I mean, he had great top control, transitions. I mean, he got it where it needed to be, and he capitalized on it completely. I was very impressed with the double legs. I mean, the way he was able to drive through Jalen. I mean, Jalen did have bits of success within the fight in the sense of, I mean, he hit him with a really nice straight left and sat Moicano down on his butt very quickly. But he didn't follow through. I mean, he thought that he had the walk-off KO. He signaled to the ref thinking that he was going to call it off. And then he goes in and lunges at Moicano. Moicano just gets out of the way. So, I mean, I guess it's just going to be a huge learning curve for Jalen in that sense. And it's got to be that's going to be extremely frustrating for him. But I think that overall in the fight for Jalen, though, I just feel like he didn't settle into the fight well. I feel like after Hanato secured that first takedown, he was pretty hesitant with his striking. I mean, you look at the total strikes and the significant strike output. Jalen was not throwing much at all, even when he was on the feet. I mean, there just wasn't much there. I'm not sure what it was exactly. I am assuming, as I said, I am assuming that it is the takedown threat and the fact that Hanato was actually able to drive through him and get him down quite easily. I think that's just what really shut Jalen's game down. Looking at that at the end of this fight and looking at the fact that he was able to get through Jalen fairly easily, I mean, Moicano's definitely got options now. I mean, he could possibly break through the top 10 with a fight against Dan Hooker, Benoit Saint Denis even. I mean, that Benoit Saint Denis fight would line up pretty well in terms of the timeline. I think, yeah, overall, I mean, just Moicano did a great job as an underdog. I mean, just driving through with the takedowns. And I think that Jalen, in terms of this fight, I just think he needed to be more active on the feet. I think he needed to flick the jab and make his range a statement, which he just didn't do. Hanato was able to get inside and drive through. I think overall, yeah, a fantastic performance by Moicano. Obviously, we didn't get an amazing post fight. I think the UFC's might have put a bit of a tab on him in terms of at least just the sheer amount of swearing he does. But I mean, yeah, I was getting pretty keen for that. It's another moment like Jim fucking Miller. It's just we're just not getting these good moments in this early part of this card. But I mean, obviously, when we go through the rest of the card, we know there's been some very good moments. All right, now moving up the card, we have Sadiq Yusuff versus Diego Lopez. Now this fight I didn't think would go the distance, but I mean, I didn't think it would finish this quickly. Diego Lopez put on a performance. I mean, he had clean striking, mixed his shots well in the clinch. I mean, usually he has pretty poor striking. I mean, even striking defense strike. I mean, even his striking offense has been a bit iffy. But I mean, he's huge for the featherweight division, and he's just carrying around a lot of power. But honestly, with the tight guard of Sadiq Yusuff and his ability to counter-strike, I was just shocked that he was able to put away Sadiq that quickly. Clinch work is something we haven't really seen that much from Diego Lopez before, but I mean, clearly it works. I mean, he landed a clean uppercut and dropped Sadiq straight away. I don't know how Sadiq recovered from that first one in the first place. He got caught with one, which was the worst one of the two, and then got back up to his feet somehow, and then got caught with another one in the clinch. And when that one dropped him, I mean, we spoke about this before when it came to the predictions. At any point when it comes to that ground game, I mean, Diego's just got a monstrous advantage. I mean, when he landed that uppercut, dropped him, he transitioned straight into the mount effortlessly. Even dropping to the ground like that with Sadiq not being hurt, I mean, his ability to transition, like submission transitions, wrestling transitions, just any form of ground transition is just, it's just too good. I mean, when Sadiq was injured, was hurt to that extent, and he got to that mount position, it was over. His power was just too much for Yusuff at the end of the day. The fight really wasn't long enough to see if the layoff and the war with Barboza was affecting Sadiq in any way. I just think he simply just got caught with a good shot. He's definitely becoming, I think with Diego, he's definitely becoming one of the bigger names in the featherweight division. And now that he's ranked, he'll have a lot of options. I mean, he did call out Movsar Evloev for the rematch in his post-fight speech, but I think he'll probably need one or two more wins before he gets that fight again. But I mean, him moving up and getting that experience before fighting Evloev will be very beneficial. I think especially being able to, I guess, work on more composed striking and to deal with that, to be able to counter that wrestling of Evloev as well. He is, yeah, an amazing prospect for the featherweight division, and I mean for for the UFC in general. I mean, if he keeps getting performances like these, he's gonna be huge in the sport. He definitely put on one of the best performances in this fight card. Alright, now moving up the card, we have Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm. I think just in this fight, I just feel like Kayla Harrison she's just too strong. I think she was able to close the distance extremely well and just control Holly on the ground. There was one part in that first round where it looked like she was in danger when she did slide off the top when she was trying to get back control. She slid off the top, and then Holly Holm got top control. But I mean, within that, it was 15 seconds of control time, as you can see on the screen. There was nothing in it. Kayla reversed the position, used honestly borderline, wasn't even really a technique. It was just pure strength. I mean, the strength was her key in this fight. I think when it came to Holly, she just needed to circle out more and use her front leg kicks to create the distance. Her front leg side kicks especially. She was very good at using front leg side kicks to cover distance and to give herself that range earlier on in her career. I mean, it's obviously clear to say she's 42. She's 9 years older than Kayla Harrison. I mean, and her style is just not complemented by aging as well. Ultimately, it was very one-sided in this fight. It's pretty hard to see where Holly's going to go after this. I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the UFC does with her. But, I mean, Dana did come out in the post-fight press conference and was, like, hinting at she's done a lot in the UFC, but he was hinting at a retirement for her. And then on the other hand, I mean, I think Kayla's an amazing addition to the UFC, like, obviously for that bantamweight division. I mean, the bantamweight division's the weakest division in the UFC. I mean, they've scrapped the featherweight division, so they've got all the featherweights that can make the weight, cutting down to the bantamweight division to fill that in. And I mean, with Amanda Nunes leaving, there's not a whole lot of pedigree there. I mean, Amanda Nunes has been so dominant in that division for so long that it's kind of like when John Jones left the light heavyweight division. It's just all over the place. I think that if it's an opportunity with Kayla, I think Kayla has the ability to revive that division in the sense of, I'm pretty confident that Kayla's going to run through and get the title, but if she gets the title, it could potentially drag Amanda Nunes back into the division, because that's the only competition that Amanda Nunes really has there. So I think that could be an opportunity. I mean, looking at that fight, obviously the overall strength for Kayla Harrison is just what got it done. All right, next up the card, we have Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. I mean, first of all, Aljo's weight translation just looked really good. I mean, throughout the whole entire fight week, I mean, he's just looked a lot healthier than he was at bantamweight. I mean, it's just translated extremely well in terms of the speed up in that division, his strength overall. Even in the striking department, as what we were saying in the predictions, he was chewing up Kattar's leg early. That compromised leg, he was really beating into it. He landed 12 leg kicks overall. From that, I mean, the biggest advantage and the biggest sway in this fight was him running the pipe. He ran the pipe, got the single leg, and then dragged it to the ground. He dominated the ground. Aljo dominated the ground from all positions, and Kattar just didn't have the answers there. And as I said in the predictions, I honestly think that Calvin Kattar's takedown defense is overvalued. He has no opponents. He has had no opponents that have a wrestling background, and to that point, nowhere near the level of wrestling and jiu-jitsu base as Aljamain Sterling. And that was clear to say. I mean, Aljamain had almost a full fight worth of control time. He was the most dominant fight. It was the most dominant win on the card, even more dominant than Wei Li and Yan Xiaonan. I think Kattar as well, I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, Kattar did look rusty. I mean, he is coming off that injury, and he's facing a different opponent stylistically to what he's faced before. I think he'll look a lot better in his next fight. Obviously, it's going to come down to whoever he does fight next, but I don't see him getting dominated in his next fight against whoever he's going to face. Just because, I mean, he's gotten a taste of what that stylistic matchup's like, so it's going to be very interesting to see what the next opponent brings for him and how he can actually perform. Obviously, going through that fight, the key for Aljamain was all the wrestling transitions, his takedowns, running the pipe with the single leg. He just put on a wrestling clinic. When it comes to Kattar, just needs to improve the single leg defense. I mean, takedown defense overall, as I said, overvalued. He really needs that experience against those wrestlers if he's going to make any dent in the featherweight division. All right, now onto the feature prelim fight. We had Jiri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic. I mean, Rakic looked good early, and he was very composed throughout the first round. He was chewing up Yuri's legs throughout that first round. He was outpointing him on the outside. He was doing a very good job of staying composed. Jiri was coming forward. He was using a lot of pressure, but he was getting tagged. I think he was really trying to figure out Rakic's game. And Rakic obviously was trying to figure out the unorthodox game of Jiri, but he was circling outside appropriately when trying to figure that out so he wasn't getting caught. I do think that Rakic took that first round. However, I think going further into it, when it came to Rakic's striking, it just seemed like his punching power wasn't exactly there. I mean, I'm not sure if it comes down to Yuri's chin, but when Jiri and Rakic were engaging in exchanges, Rakic was hitting him multiple times. Jiri was tagged multiple times in the round, and he just was not phased at all. I mean, he was clenching his jaw every time he got hit, and I don't know, it was borderline looking like he was liking it. I honestly don't think Rakic had a bad performance by any means. I mean, that first round I think he took. I just think that I think in terms of capitalizing when you're going against Jiri, I think he really needed to vary up his shots. He was hitting a lot to the legs. He was doing a lot of damage to the legs, but I think that he needed to utilize those shots to the legs to then set up the head kick. I think the head kick was his best chance of getting Jiri out of there. Jiri has his hands very low, and we've seen against Jimmy Manoa, I mean, his kick is fast. He has a very fast left high kick. And I don't think anyone's eating. If there's a connection like it was on Jimmy Manoa, no one on the planet's eating that. So I think that in terms of that improvement perspective, I think that Rakic could have emphasized more there. But I mean, in the fight, both guys showed really impressive chins. I was surprised. I don't know how Rakic didn't get slept when Jiri was firing off on him. As soon as Rakic turned his back, though, and he fell to the ground, you just knew it was over, that he just wasn't getting up. He was so hurt. Although when it came to the chins, though, it made the fight so much more interesting because, I mean, Jiri hit him with a very clean 1-2. That's what started off the exchange, the finishing sequence. And then he got Rakic into a clinch. He got Rakic in the clinch and hit him with a flush knee. And even after that, as Rakic was on skates, but Rakic was still tagging Jiri as he was like wobbled, so badly wobbled. So it looked like there could have been that off chance that Rakic could have knocked him out while it was in that finishing sequence. So it ultimately made for a very good, very exciting fight. I mean, you expect it from guys with conflicting styles like this. I mean, ultimately, Yuri's unorthodox style and his cage pressure just allowed him to connect effectively out of the two of them. I think when it comes to Jiri, I think he should just hold out for a title shot. I mean, just to see how things unravel with Alex Pereira. I mean, Alex Pereira did hint at wanting to go up to heavyweight, and obviously, if he's going up to heavyweight, he's going to be fighting for a title. When it comes to that, though, if he does go up to heavyweight, there could be an interim belt, which I think a good matchup could be Jiri Prochazka versus Magomed Ankalaev. I think that would definitely be an interesting fight. We'll just have to see how the matchups go. All right, now moving on to the main card, we have Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. I think this fight just went as expected, realistically. I mean, Cody did show some good positional awareness on the ground. I mean, he didn't allow Bo to get his submissions going in the first round. And I think it was heavily anticipated that the fight was going to finish in the first round. So it's interesting to see that. I mean, like going into the second round, but though Bo just, I mean, he just took over in the second. I mean, he obviously got the sub, he got the rear naked choke. And I think it just came down to Cody not being able to keep up the pace defensively. Bo's he just completely out grappled him, and I think it was just a matter of time before he was able to secure that submission or that TKO finish. I think overall this fight's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's good that Bo's got more cage time now, but I do think that just doesn't gain him any more fans. I do think it's more of a loss than a win. I just don't see it as a big win for him. And just from what we've seen, I mean, if he's not getting Brundage out in the first round, I mean, he's gonna have to be taking it slow. I mean, yeah, he's got like six fights in the UFC, 6 fights in MMA. So he's obviously very fresh, but I mean, he's got a lot of hype around him, and that can push him. That hype can definitely push him faster than he should be getting pushed. I think anyone in the top 15 that he's fighting in middleweight, I honestly don't see him winning at this point in time. So I think he needs a fair bit more experience outside the top 15 first, and then we'll see how it goes from there. I think if he gets a really good grip on his boxing and jiu-jitsu game and really rounds out his arsenal, he could do some damage. Moving on up the card, we have Charles versus Arman. What a fight. I mean, Charles opened up well in that he kept his boxing guard tight and he countered off Arman's parried shots very well. I think overall in this fight, Charles did have that striking advantage there. I think the best shot of the fight was his perfectly timed leg kick that sweeped Arman off of his feet. I mean, in this fight, it was a bit all over the place. We had a bit of everything. I mean, we had the up kick to the face from Charles, which I don't think was deliberate. I think it did skim off the chest first, and then went up and hit Arman in the face. So I think it's fair for the warning and the reposition, but yeah, definitely no more than that. I think on Arman's side, it was just very impressive seeing him be able to survive that guillotine. Not only being able to survive that guillotine, but then transition to a better position off it. I think he just showed, as we're talking about, is the most important thing for him in this fight. It's just him showing that he needs to show great awareness in his top control, which he did. He was controlling Charles's head when he was in full guard, and that just nullified Charles's guard. He didn't really have a lot of submission threats, only at the start of the fight and the very end of the fight. I do think that Charles seemed very passive, and he probably needed some urgency in the fight, going more towards the end of it, obviously because of Arman's ground control. And I think Charles's best option throughout the fight was to actually keep the fight on the feet. He just has a more versatile range of strikes there. Very good use of guard, very good head movement. He was obviously he's hittable, but I mean he was displaying a lot of good head movement and especially that tight guard in this fight. So I think he was in that zone to really actually use his striking effectively. I think he was he didn't stuff the takedown to the best of his ability. There was a few in there. I believe in the second round, he stuffed a very deep double leg from Arman, which was very impressive. But aside from that, I mean, Arman was able to successfully get him down where it counted. I was a bit surprised that it was a split decision. I do think Arman took every single round. There's possibly the first round for Charles because of the guillotine threat, but otherwise I think Arman looked extremely impressive. It's definitely going to be tricky to see where Charles goes from here. I mean, he's in a bit of a limbo. I mean, he's fought pretty much everyone, so it's going to be fascinating to see who they actually give him. But yeah, I'll be making another video about the next matchups for the UFC 300 top fighters, and we'll see what we can get out of that there. But yeah, when it comes to Arman, I think he's the biggest threat to Islam at this point in time. I think that Islam will probably be able to get through Poirier, and then we'll be able to see Arman versus Islam too. And I think that's definitely gonna be an interesting fight. All right, moving on to the BMF title. I mean, honestly, just plain and simple, it's fight of the night. I mean, it's probably not even fair to call it fight of the night. It's just fight of the year. It was just an incredible fight. I mean, when we look at Holloway, I mean, his weight translated extremely well. He looked so fast. I mean, his power, everything. I mean, he just looked fantastic, especially compared to what he looked like when he was against Poirier. Obviously, coming on 4 weeks against Poirier compared to a full training camp here, I mean, you can just see an immediate difference there. And obviously, there's been a lot of experience that he's actually gained since that fight anyway. But I think, yeah, overall, Holloway just put on an absolute striking clinic against Gaethje. I mean, he invested heavily in the body throughout the whole fight. Looked like, I can't confirm for sure, but I mean, broke Gaethje's nose in the first round with the spinning back kick, which that kick landed pretty much every time. I think he threw about 4 or 5 of them throughout the fight, and they landed every single time. Every time Gaethje would come forward, Max would like take a step back and then use it, and then Gaethje would dip into it every single time. So he timed it perfectly. Just the entire fight, he's mixing his strikes in completely well. And he even outstruck Gaethje on leg kicks 57-33, which is, I mean, in terms of their games and the way they fight stylistically, I mean, that's impressive in itself. It's tough for Gaethje. I mean, he was dismantled from the start. I mean, his body was just wrecked. I mean, with his nose being broken, his capability to breathe is just so much lower. And the biggest issue in a fight like that, when he can't breathe effectively, is that the oxygen's leaving his body, and you need oxygen to utilize your power. So I mean, as soon as his nose broke, I mean, that was just a ticking time bomb for his power to just slowly just wean away. When we look at Holloway, I mean, he's got options now. He's got a lot of options. I mean, he's got featherweight title, lightweight title, he's BMF. I mean, he's got people that'll be wanting that title from him. He can wait for Islam after Poirier, and then you got Arman there as well. So it's a huge mixed bag in terms of that lightweight fight. But I mean, I think what's probably most likely is going to be Ilya. I mean, he was straight on the mic he straight away just called out Ilya. Yeah, he wants to fight him in Spain. He doesn't care where he wants to fight him, but he's talking about Spain. So that would obviously be an incredible fight. He's just got a very good attitude in terms of the way he wants to face these challenges. I mean, he saw what Ilya did to Volkanovski, and he's just like, oh, I want a piece of that. I mean, he's very impressive in this fight and his mindset overall. One thing that does annoy me though is that the official statistics actually don't give Gaethje the knockdown for whatever reason. I don't know why, but Gaethje literally caught him with a right hook on the side of his head, just behind his ear, and I don't know why it wasn't counted. I mean, it's just like Gaethje going through that war, having his body dismantled, and then the finish of the fight, that last 2 second to 1 second finish, absolutely flatline Gaethje. I mean, it's just like giving him one win, just taking away that record from Holloway would just be a nice win for Gaethje. But I mean, yeah, for whatever reason, it just doesn't count. I have no idea why. Yeah, it's just definitely rough for Gaethje. I mean, it's hard to see where he goes from here. He's 35, and he previously stated he's only got one title run left in him. I honestly think that there could be a strong possibility that he could retire unless he just gets a fight that makes sense. I don't know who you could give him unless he somehow gets a McGregor fight or something like that. I just don't know what is there for him, what would make him hungry. Aside from the lightweight title, it's definitely a tricky situation. Yeah, but as I said, honestly, this fight was incredible. It's probably going to cement itself as fight of the year. And that photo, just that picture of Holloway just screaming after knocking out Gaethje in that last 2 seconds is just iconic. Now onto the co-main event, we have Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. I mean, when we look at the start of the fight, I mean, Weili caused Yan a lot of issues early. I mean, in terms of the ground game, as originally thinking through the predictions, I mean, the issues were definitely there because they were dry. I mean, Weili successfully got a takedown pretty quick, and in the end of round 1, I mean, it was very controversial. I mean, at the end, I mean, Yan technically got submitted. If that was another 2 seconds, I think Herzog would have came in and called it. She was literally out. It was pretty impressive that she got back to her feet and was actually able to walk back to her corner. When it comes to Yan as well, I mean, throughout the fight, she showed the power difference. She was winning the striking battles and dropped Weili. Weili just struggled with the reach. A lot of her shots, like the total strike compared to the significant strikes, as you can see, about 150 of them are realistically around ground and pound pot shots when she had control. I think if Weili and Yan had to stay on the feet, I honestly think Yan would have won. But yeah, Weili just outclassed her on the ground. I mean, that was definitely the key to the win. But it's definitely interesting to see how Yan would perform if she focused on her takedown defense and her ground game. But because honestly, if she just kept it on the feet, like Weili would have been in trouble. I mean, she was in trouble. Yeah, I think when it comes to Weili moving forward, I think it's just going to be interesting to see, compared to this fight specifically in her ground game, it's going to be very interesting to see how Weili's ground game goes against Tatiana Suarez. All right, now onto the main event. I mean, as expected, a pretty quick finish. Well, in that first round, from what we've got of it, I mean, for the analysis, I mean, both of them were trading and were pretty even on the leg kicks. I mean, Jamal, to his credit, actually outlanded Pereira in the leg kick department. But I've got to say, one of the coldest moments on the card was Pereira getting hit in the groin. He got hit with a groin shot, did not even look at Herb Dean, pushed him away, palmed him off, and then just got that classic left hook in there and then put him down for the ground and pound as predicted. Yeah, it was just that power there, pressuring Jamal against that cage. And I think a big thing was breaking that rhythm too. I think Jamal was just kind of getting into his rhythm, and then that groin shot kind of broke it. And I think it just completely separated. And then, yeah, Pereira was making his reads and was complete, as you saw. If you look specifically at their body language in that scenario, Jamal is like sticking the thumbs up. He's just like, you're all good and all that. He wasn't thinking about the fight, whereas Pereira was directly just thinking about, no, I don't care, whatever, just let me fight. And then literally within about 5 seconds, I mean, he just cleans Jamal up with the left hook to ground and pound. I think in the fight, I mean, Jamal did seem he seemed overconfident throughout the whole entire fight week. And I think being overconfident isn't the worst thing. I mean, it's good for like the publicity and everything like that. But I think he was overconfident to the point where he's undermining Pereira's skill set. And I think when you look at it, as soon as the rhythm broke and he was put on the back foot, it was over. Yeah, Pereira just pressured well, got the reads, and closed off the card perfectly. I think that just one takeaway for Jamal, I mean, which we haven't really seen before up until this fight, is just he can't allow himself to be on the back foot. All right, now we're moving on to the fight card awards. So I think when it comes to the fighter to watch, I think we got to go with Diego Lopes. I think when it comes to being a fighter to watch and being that in that prospect zone, I mean, he, aside from the big fighters like Gaethje, Pereira, I mean, Yuri, I mean, he is the one aside from them that really put on the clinic. So we know what all of them are capable of. But when we look at that kind of prospect zone, I mean, Diego Lopes is coming through the rankings fast. I mean, he is doing extremely well. He's an exciting fighter. Finish after finish after finish. Went to a decision against Evloev, and in that Evloev fight, I mean, almost took Evloev's arm home. almost took his leg home. Yeah, he is dangerous. I mean, seeing what Evloev has done to Arnold Allen, and now rewinding and seeing what Diego Lopez did to him, I mean, there's so much potential there. I think moving on from that, finish of the night, I mean, to be honest, no brainer, Max Holloway. I mean, such a cold moment. I mean, just ridiculous. The fact that he was winning that fight, I mean, he was pretty much winning to that 5th round. He was a 49-46. I mean, possibly a 50-45 clean sweep. But the fact that he was winning by such a huge margin and then decides to do the Ricardo Lamas, just finger pointing down, and he's just, it's like, let's go. And just the fact that he did that with everything to lose in that last 10 seconds. And I mean, he cleaned Gaethje up, like face planted, gone. Just an incredible scene. I mean, fight of the year for sure. Now, moving on from that, we have the best card moments. So we have it ranked 3, 2, and 1. 3 being bronze, obviously second silver, and first is gold. So the last one will be the best one. So the third best moment of the card, I've got to say, it's got to be Yuri and Rakic. I think it's just their exchange. I mean, both of them showed their chins. I mean, it looked like Rakic was going to be fine, and then Yuri just started tagging him, and then Rakic started tagging him back. And then, I mean, overall, it was just an amazing fight. And I mean, Yuri definitely deserved that 300k bonus for that performance in that fight. Went through some adversity, and I mean, he got the job done. I think moving on to number 2, we have Alex Pereira ignoring the groin shot and taking out Jamal. I mean, it's such a let him cook moment. It's just like, no, Herb Dean, away. Just we don't need you right now. I'm just gonna knock this guy out. Just give me 5 seconds. Just don't worry about my groin. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I honestly thought Pereira just had the superior striking, but I honestly thought we were at least going to get a second round. I think it just makes it so much more of a cold moment, the fact that it did happen in the first round and there was that trash talk beforehand. It's going to be interesting to see how Jamal bounces back from that. Now, for the best moment of the card, I'm pretty sure anyone can guess it. It's got to be Holloway. It's just the BMF fight in general. I mean, the last 10 seconds with the Ricardo Lamas fight style. And not only that, just within that fight as well. I mean, after the fight, I mean, getting to see, just at the moment that's encapsulated, Mark Coleman getting to wrap the BMF belt around Holloway's waist. I think it's going to be hard to top this moment for this year. I hope you've enjoyed this video. For more videos like this, feel free to like and subscribe.